This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And you have arrived, folks. You have arrived in the gentle waters of Creep Street.
Oh, you are welcome here. Welcome to our little land.
From sea to shining sea, let it be creepy. Now listen, folks.
Yeah.
You could follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. Mm-hmm. We also just recently started a Threads.
Oh, we're over there.
We're on Threads. We got a TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
All the stuff. And, of course, if once a week is not enough, just head on over to patreon.com for all sorts of goodies.
All sorts. We're talking all sorts.
All sorts. Now, folks, last week we gave them Yokai 2.
Yes. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to listen to that so far. We have appreciated your kind words about it, and you know, it was fun. I enjoyed learning about our spooky friends to the east.
Now, folks,
yeah,
we have arrived at one of our favorite times of year.
Oh, you got to love it.
Get ready for some homegrown horrors, because today's episode is Listener Stories Volume 6.
Wait, really quick, before we take that dive, before we get into the wonderful waters of Lake Creep Street.
Yeah?
Just want to say this up top, okay? If you submitted a story to us via email or DMing on any kind of social media, and you sent that since our last episode aired, our last Listener Stories episode aired, and now, if you haven't heard your story, that was a mistake. And we are so sorry for that. So once again, if you have sent us a story and you don't hear it today, please resend your story and we will still share it. It's not because we didn't like your story and we didn't think it was good enough. It was clearly a mistake. We're just a couple of silly geese trying to run a podcast, and sometimes we make some gosh darn mistakes.
That's true.
So anyway, please remember that. But I'm excited to really, like you said, dive into these waters. So Dylan, take her away.
That's right, folks. Let's start off with listener Davy Suapel. I have a short story that involves another listener of this podcast. So my buddy Aaron Ramos, Patreon subscriber Corey Ramos's husband, the renegade Corey Ramos, that is, he and I used to hunt ghosts when we were in high school. We would do one of two things. Either I would research a place, find out how it's haunted, and see if we could collaborate the situation or debunk it for being fake. Or we would just hear a place might be haunted, go see what we would find, and report back to compare what other people had found. I have so many stories I could talk about, but this one doesn't involve anything I just listed above. This one involves a spooky situation that happened to find us. So Aaron and I, again, in high school at the time, around 2005, we would stay at each other's house every single night. We would often walk to the gas station very late at night for sodas and snacks. This would often be around 1 to 2 a.m. most times, and once we were walking and it was an unusually foggy night. We were going to the gas station when we noticed someone on the opposite side of the street walking alongside us. The strange thing is when they would get to the streetlight portion of the road, they seemingly wouldn't be there anymore. We were really weirded out, so we actually ran for a little bit to get away from this person walking. To the right of the sidewalk we were on, there was a small hill that went down into a field. This field was recently cut and much shorter than normal. Jokingly, I said, "Hey, wouldn't it be scary if a ghost just rose out of the ground right there?" And at that exact moment, a silver shape rose out of the ground and almost followed the height we were walking. Without even noticing, we both gasped and reached down to hold each other's hand. As we're holding each other's hands, I noticed the shape is actually a birthday balloon that was low on helium. We laugh and are so relieved it wasn't a ghost trying to prove itself to us. A few minutes later, I pointed out how weird it was that the balloon just appeared there as I said that. Looking back, the grass was cut so short the balloon couldn't have been hiding in the brush. We got nervous again, and we noticed the balloon was gone. Now, again, this balloon barely had any helium and couldn't have flown away. It was a calm enough night that it didn't blow away. Another thing to point out is after we saw the balloon, we no longer saw the person on the side of the road. Needless to say, we got our 64-ounce sodas, our Slim Jims, and we went home to play some Armored Core, but to this day, it creeps me out. It was just a strange night. I do remember a few months later, there was construction where that field was. Again, it was late at night, between 1 and 2 a.m., and there was a section where they were keeping all their stuff. Wood, concrete, road signs, and some machinery. There was a road sign, the kind that tells you to switch lanes because the lane is closed. And when we approached it, the lights started to flash on and off. It was highlighting the metal box, and it looked like there was something in the middle of it. We both got an eerie feeling as we got closer. It looked like a head was sitting in the middle of the box. But this was just like before. When the light was on the head, it wasn't there. But when the flashing stopped, the head silhouette was prominent. The face looked in pain. We actually hopped the fence to get a closer look because we were in disbelief, and when we got closer, there was nothing there, and nothing that could have created the image we saw. I will note, Corey Ramos is the one who got me into your podcast. I think I started around December of last year, but I went back and listened to everything. Wow. Well, first of all, Davey, thank you for being a listener, and we, of course, love the Renegade Corey Ramos.
Oh, my gosh,
and are so happy that you have joined us here. But, Dag, let's talk about that story.
I mean, I was thinking a little bit, and I don't think they're actually connected. It's just something that's worth saying. It reminded me a little bit of Hellier.
Yes, it did.
The show that we reference often. It's on YouTube.
Yes.
Starring Greg and Dana Newkirk, if you are interested.
Yes, an excellent, excellent series we've talked about many times.
But yeah, just the idea of this balloon, very spooky, very weird.
Also, the figure walking down the sidewalk, I said this while we were messaging back and forth with them. It felt very Grinning Man. It felt very, to me, not necessarily like a ghost or...
Right.
It felt more like a trickster. It felt like something John Keel would write about.
Yeah, that's very strange.
Right? Like there's a sort of almost a playful quality to it.
Right. I got that too. And I mean, damn, the absolute balls to be going ghost hunting when you're in high school, like just,
Oh, yeah.
the two of you or whatever. Like, that's horrifying.
Horrifying. Wow.
Oh my God. Very scary stuff. It's like when I hear stories about this, when people tell us these stories, I'm like, oh my God, like they actually saw this. This isn't just like, not saying that these aren't credible or whatever, but like some story you read on Reddit or, whatever.
Right.
It's
right.
like, this is like, oh wow, like someone is saying like, no, I experienced this. Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah. So wild. Well, Davey, thank you so much.
Yes.
And welcome to the Creep Street family.
Woo!
Maureen, go ahead and take us into our next tale.
Okay, here we go. We have a very exciting, cool story from a wonderful listener. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone give it up for Lee Wallace Savage. Hello, Dylan and Maureen. I'm a huge fan of the Creep Street podcast and look forward to tuning in every Friday. I am a funeral director and manage a crematorium in Pennsylvania, and never once have I had any sort of paranormal experience at work. I am open-minded to the paranormal, but I think most times experiences can be explained. If any sort of unexplainable event were to happen to me, I would want to investigate every possibility before I rule it paranormal. The one and only experience I ever had, I cannot explain it away, and over the years, too many dots connected that have led me to the conclusions I am going to share. I've changed the names of the people in this story, but other than that, this is a true telling of events. Here's what happened. I grew up in Minersville, Pennsylvania, in the same house that my mother grew up in. Minersville was at the time a small town where most people knew each other, or at least recognized family names. One night during my senior year of high school, I got an unexpected call around 2 to 3 a.m. from the neighbor girl, Stacy, that I would drive to school each morning. Since our houses were right next to each other and she did not yet have her license, it was never a problem for us to carpool. She would only really contact me on the days where she was sick to let me know that I didn't need to pick her up, and even then, she would text me. When I answered, she seemed pretty hyper and almost in shock, saying over and over that she saw the boy. After calming her down, she explained that she was headed to her bedroom to go to sleep when she saw a young boy sitting on her bed. He was sitting with his arms around one leg and the other one down. What really confused me at the time was his description. She said he was only in his underwear, covered in mud, had dark hair, and the look on his face looked very angry. Then he was gone. She said it was hardly a few seconds, but long enough to know that she definitely had seen him. She went on saying, "I needed to call you because I remember you telling my dad you saw him too, and I think it was the same boy." Rewind to the summer of 1997. I was 4 years old. We had just moved into the house, my mom's family having moved out after her childhood. I would swing on the swing set that was directly next to Stacy's house. Her father, Tom, was a great guy, and he would chat with me while he was doing yard work. I remember one particular day, as I was talking to Tom, seeing in the window a boy. I asked Tom if he was allowed to come over and swing with me. Tom was confused, and I remember clear as day him having me point exactly where I saw the boy, and him going back and forth asking me again and again what and where I was seeing him. I did not see the boy's face. The window shade was partially down, but I could see his bare chest. I swear to you, in all of Creep Street, I could see the blue light from Tom's living room television flicker on the boy's chest. He was there. Now, up until this point of Stacy's phone call, I had always assumed that what I had actually seen was Stacy, and the reason why her dad was confused was because Stacy is a girl. However, Stacy was not yet born. We continued to discuss into the night, trying to figure out who this boy could be. I decided the next day I'd ask my mom and grandmother, who lived on the street longer than the both of us, if there was any history of a small boy living and dying in that house. As I told them the story, they were entertaining me, but when I mentioned the detail about Stacy seeing the boy being muddy, my mom's casual demeanor changed to intense interest and sadness. "Oh my God, I think that could be Ed," is the answer I got, and these clarifying details followed. Ed was my mother's age and part of the neighborhood crew of children who would all play together. He had lived in Stacy's house until he was about 5 or 6 years old, at which time his family moved across the street to the bigger house. My mom's family knew him well. Ed died at the age of 19 in 1989 from injuries sustained from a car accident. He survived the initial crash, however, he was partially ejected from the vehicle, which pinned him down into the muddy ground. It was the middle of the night, and he was there alone. He was unable to move due to the car being on him, and eventually he died when he was unable to keep his head up out of the mud to breathe. My grandmother commented that Ed would always be in his underwear when he was little, and he used to sit at the kitchen table as Stacy described, holding his leg. My mom also confirmed to us that Stacy's bedroom was Ed's when he lived there, explaining why he was angry. Having such a traumatic death, it seems that he wanted to linger at the place where he had good childhood memories. I think about Ed often, and how insane it is that what at first seemed like random details ended up coming together to make sense. I looked up a photo of him in my mom's yearbook, and he indeed did have dark hair. My mom and I pray for him, that someday he will be able to move on in peace. It upsets my mother that Ed is still there, but I think he's probably just enjoying the place that I'm sure holds dear childhood memories for him, explaining why he would appear younger than he was when he died. I have included a photo that was taken right around the time I saw Ed for context. I am on the swing, and the window in which I saw the boy is to the left. Wow.
Wow. First of all, what an awful way to die.
Oh, so sad about Ed. I mean, God, that is tragic.
So interesting that the light of the television
Yes.
actually was illuminated on the chest of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
it wasn't just a kind of transparent or translucent thing. It was like a solid.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
It would imply that it had some mass to it.
Yes. I mean, wow. It's amazing that his neighbor was able to remember that he had that memory from when he was a little boy.
Right.
And wow, what a crazy way that they were able to connect those things and kind of put it together, what probably is going on. And
Right.
And you know, what a crazy story. Thank you so much for sending that. Wow.
Yes, thank you so much, Lee. Momo, I mean, we are just, two bangers.
I mean, we're moving and grooving.
Two, incredible stories
Yes.
right out the gate.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead and share our next one.
Okay. Now we have one from another fantastic listener, another member of the squad of the Creep Street Homeowners Association. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. This is Melody Cram. Hi, guys. I recently finished your latest Listener Stories episode, and it had me thinking back to my childhood scares. I actually remembered some of them when the first listener story came out, but they're not very dramatic, so I didn't think it was worth sharing. I realize now, though, that as small as they may be, there were actually many of them which actually make me uncomfy to realize. So, first off, some context. All of these memories come from when I was younger. I don't remember my ages for each of them, but most of them revolve around the last house I lived in, which we moved into when I was 5, and then they stopped in primary school, so probably between 5 and 12. My dad inherited the house from his mom, and it's over 100 years old. It's got wooden floors with this empty space underneath before the concrete, and the ceiling is higher up than in modern houses. Great for keeping cool in the 36 degrees Celsius summer days here in South Africa, but horrible for trying to be rat-free. This place looked like a museum. We moved in to take care of my Oma. She was a horribly mean old lady and was going senile and crazy. She'd cut the lawn with a butter knife and threw some boiling kettle water at Mom once. She went to a care home before long. The scary comes in the first time I snuck a peek in her room. She had an old, ugly yellow bed on one side and an army of crosses hung all over the walls, but mostly on the wall opposite her bed. I distinctly remember sticking my head in facing the bed first, then turning to the opposing wall, being stuck staring at the crosses as they vibrated against the wall. I ran to the kitchen. There was a horrible sensation of being stuck, starting when the crosses moved, and it took a lot for me to turn away. But as soon as I did, it was gone. Once Oma moved out to the care center, we rearranged who had what bedroom, and I ended up getting her old one. The room felt horrible, but that was probably just because I was 5, and this was the room where the crosses vibrated at me. Mom said we were replacing the bad energy with good energy. She's not particularly superstitious, but I remember we strung up ribbons to help with that. I stayed in that room till we moved again, which was when I was 19, so I was there for a long while, and it took a long time for the room to actually feel warm. By warm, I mean both temperature and atmosphere. It was always a little colder than the rest of the house, which I appreciated. There were two things that happened to me in that room that really made me feel fear. The first was when I was awake in bed one night because I couldn't sleep, and I suddenly felt very strongly that someone was in my room and it was watching me. When I say very strongly, I mean it. I remember I was wide awake and bored, so I practiced doing an Australian accent and pretended to be on an interview about a crocodile being in my pool. I was small and it was fun, when I just felt so scared for seemingly no reason. I was lying with my back to my room, but I didn't hear any footsteps. And keep in mind, the entire house has wooden flooring, and I knew all the spots that creaked, so I always knew when someone was approaching my room way before they got there. Another thing that really freaks me out today is remembering that I strongly believed that it was standing in the doorway. How did I know that when I didn't turn to look and I didn't hear any noise from it? The second thing happened when I woke up in the night, this time facing my room rather than the wall. This was when I was a little older, so maybe 6 or 7. It was that swimming dark that the world is when you just open your eyes, but I could make out basic details. I have a wardrobe built in the wall across from my bed, and I was facing it when I woke up. I just lay there, not really watching anything in particular, and the swimming vision didn't go away even though my eyes were all the way awake now. Then there was movement on the wardrobe door, just above the door handle. I remember looking at the spot and seeing the shoes first. It looked like it was forming out of smoke. Soon there was a little boy, shorter than me, with round shoes and short hair, standing in the air above the door handle. He was moving his foot like he was scraping sandy ground to make some dust come up. It was a small movement. He was busy for a while, and I remember being shocked that this was happening. I wasn't scared in the way I was with the other thing. I was freaked that he was there, but he himself wasn't scary. Eventually he noticed me. He looked up at me and just vanished, the faint smoke stuff dispersing into the darkness like it was never there. I didn't feel threatened, so once my breathing calmed down, I could eventually sleep again. Then also some small things. There was one ceiling corner in my room, not one above my bed, that always seemed darker than the other corners. Because of the other stuff that happened, I was worried it was a ghost or something, and one of my school friends told me to never let a ghost know you're scared of them, so I regarded it as being okay to be there in that corner, but not anywhere else. In the same way, fire is okay as a candle, but not as a house fire. There's a passage outside my room that I sometimes felt freaked out to walk down, but that was probably psychological. The kettle in the kitchen made that click sound it does when you put it all by itself in the middle of the night and it doesn't actually boil, it just clicks. The radio always goes softer and louder by itself. I joked to Mom that the ghost doesn't like the volume and is changing it. This actually started happening in our new place as well, which is pretty close to the old place. Mom has little froggy statues that she sets up facing the front of the door of the new place, saying they keep the bad energy out. She also bow-tied black ribbons on the pipes leading out of the old house. I remember finding it funny that the toilet had one behind it. This isn't related to the house, but I remember once when my mom and I were out with my aunt and her daughter / my cousin, my aunt said to my mom, "At least yours doesn't see creepy things. Mine sees creepy things like shadow men all the time." My aunt always sounds dramatic when she's exhausted or concerned. Mom said that I didn't, noticed me listening, and asked me, "You don't, do you?" I thought of my dark corner and lied. It felt like a lie. No. Then when I ran back to wherever we were playing, I was looking at the ground as I ran, and I saw the front of big black boots that weren't there when I looked back. I still don't know what to make of any of this. My imagination is really good, always has been, but it never invades the real world. I never even had an imaginary friend. Anyway, thanks for reading. Love the research you put into your storytelling, by the way. Look forward to whatever's next. Whoa.
Wow. Very wild.
Very interesting, and it's so funny that at the end, we find out that, I don't know, maybe is this a familial situation? Does this run in the family, this ability to maybe sense things or experience things?
Yes, very true.
Coming down from the grandmother, popping off to our queen and over to her cousin. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, that's pretty crazy, but I mean, that kind of stuff is scary. That feeling that someone is watching you.
Right.
Especially it was to the point where she knew where the person was even watching from. I mean, oh my God.
Right.
That is so horrifying.
So horrifying.
Damn. Well, thank you for sending that in. You are brave.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to close us out with a big one from the notorious Nicholas Barker.
Whoa, thank you so much to the notorious Nicholas Barker. We love you. Thank you for being a listener all this time. And thanks for sending in your experiences.
And he's been working on many projects that I'm sure in the future we'll be happy to talk about and share on our show as well.
Time. Oh yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and dive in. Dear Dylan and Maureen, it's been a while since I've corresponded with you guys, and I thought that I would type up this email as the information has been handed down to me from ancestral information that I have to share for some reason. Currently, I am writing these emails at 3:32 a.m. on May 6th to satisfy my ancestors and hopefully sleep again tonight. So we will start with something easy to understand in the wider diaspora of America. There are witches in this area, and heavily so. Many are known as healer witches or green witches. Healer witches are those that can lay on hand, which is a way of saying that they can touch you and make you better instantly. No one knows how they do it, but you have to be born with such gifts. But these witches are mostly women. These women used to be sought far and wide since the early days of settlement in our area. They are generally nice and very helpful, but you can never cross them. Ever. You don't want to find out what they are truly able to do, but these gifts include clairvoyance, as well as the ability to look into your soul. I have known several women in this area who have passed on, and who took up the calling of healer witch. While it is true that church folks sneer at these women and have since the beginning, but the saying goes that those who sneer at the healer witch are the first ones to need the healer witch. The next type of witch is a green witch. These women and men have the ability to know plants and how to make them grow better and faster. This is a widely known gift in our area and has kept many from dying in these harsh lands. This is the gift that you guys spoke about in the last episode on the Appalachian Mountains lore. It seems that these people never have to study the plants of the area, but have been guided by spirits and guardians to these plants to do their healing work. Though many would consider a green witch so common, some have been more powerful than others in this area and have even been known to chase the devil out of your soul with foul-smelling concoctions. It is also, as you have said, most of these witches have been raised in the church and have known much about God and angels, but many still keep their distance. The old healer woman from our area used to be lifted to a high status among the older generations. Many more would seek these witches out for many things, and some to read your future. This is a gift that even fewer can possess, which includes burning bones or entrails and reading them to tell you what you need to know. Later, this turned into heavy amounts of palm reading and what we call water divining. Water divining is known to be like baptizing people in a creek or other clean water source to see what nature will say about you. The other type of water divining is known as dowsing and used to be really popular in our area until recently. Many old-timers swore by dowsing as a way to find almost anything. There are many stories in our area about people finding caves and emeralds or gold in our area, while just dowsing for a place to dig a well. The last type of witches are known as dark witches, or spook witches to some. These women and men are evil and should never be talked to or reasoned with in any way. Many would consider these witches to be possessed with foul spirits that simply wish to harm. It's also said that crop failure in our area was because of these dark witches. They also consort with the devil as well as spooks, hence the name spook witches. Spooks are very powerful spirits that seem to have limitless power and go where they can torment and haunt you. These spirits, and mountain lions or panthers, is why you never ever whistle in the woods around here. Many old-timers would call spooks anything that seeks to terrify you and your family. But these can be vampiric spirits as well that can prey upon your livestock and ruin crops in the fields. This is why women in our area were told to never cut their hair over an open trash can. Otherwise, they would attract these spook witches and their familiars, which are the spooks themselves. Unlike many cultures, black cats are not seen as a bad thing in our area, as they have been used in many rituals and folk tales to contact the dead and ward evil spirits away. But you are to never allow a black cat in your house. With that said, ancestors play a huge part in Lower Appalachian lore, as well as these deceased family members can protect and assist in any rituals that need to be done. Though these mountains seem to enhance their energy a lot by the flowing streams and rocky outcroppings in the mountains. Now, my family is old and have been in this area for many, many generations that we have traced back to the early 1800s and have called this area home for a long time. That is to say that we have been involved in a lot of shady business dealings over the years and always walk the line between good and evil. I come from a long line of liquor runners or moonshiners, and they would always say what roads you didn't want to drive down at night. Many would never leave home after dark, as there are things in this area that you never want to see face to face. First and foremost are mountain lions, who hunt at night almost exclusively, but there are other things too. These woods are so haunted that every square mile is filled with spirits. It almost starts as a shadow moving on the edge of your light that will not leave you until you reach camp again. Many folk would carry salt or sassafras to ward off these entities if you have to be out in the woods at night. I've never known what these beings are, but many call them watchers, as they seem to just follow you around and are almost never sighted directly. Haints fill our area as well, and could be seen as guardian spirits that the Native Americans left behind to guard their lands. These beings are often predatory, but have no ability to enter hallowed grounds, churches, blessed homes or spaces, and cemeteries and graveyards. Haints were often spoken about way back in the Civil War days and could be considered dangerous in every sense of the word. Many would hold up in caves in our area and keep watch to such things as well as mountain witches. Though some have even told me that bluegrass is so popular here because it was a way to ward evil away with happiness and music until late into the night. We have a lot of omens here as well, such as a black shulk that haunts the woods at times and can bring you and your family bad luck until they are repelled by a healer witch. Many hunters have talked about seeing these horrid dogs wandering about homesteads back in the day. Most just avoid them, but we have our ways to ward them off, such as hanging plants above your door and windows at night or placing salt outside your door. But most didn't have a lot of salt. So in this case, gunpowder and salt or red ribbons can be used to ward them off as well. Water and green magic have been used in a lot of hauntings in our area and continue to be used under the table to this day. Water magic is said to balance the energies around homes as well as calm angry spirits and ancestors. Green magic is not just used for crops and healing plants, but also has many wards that can drive out evil spirits that wander about looking for victims. Moonshiners would also speak on such things as many would dabble in these magics for good luck and support in their shady business dealings. Next, I will touch on the legend that many don't know unless you're from this area. Black Panthers are a legend that many consider just old folklore. It is true though, as I have seen Black Panthers by pictures that have been shown to me a lot. People say that Black Panthers came here from South America or are mutations in the mountain lion population. I have been stalked by many things in these woods, as I grew up in the woods of the Appalachian Mountains. It isn't uncommon to see many hide-behinds or to hear footsteps and whispering that has no source. I have heard my name called many times in these woods and have also heard someone calling my name that seems to pull my attention and spirit far away. Often I have heard female voices that haunt my mind and call my name from all directions. This happens in the woods a lot, but often in crowded rooms, and when I look around, no one called to me at all. I have even witnessed leaves moving on their own as if someone were walking along the path near me. I have never felt any ill intent from these beings during the day, but at night, it's a different story. Where I grew up in Morganton, North Carolina, my grandparents were on the hill above me with my uncle living beside them in a small holler to ourselves. I would often walk from my parents' house to my uncle's or grandparents' house at night, only to be followed by a presence that I cannot see, but could definitely feel. Your hairs stand on your neck and back, and you can feel the air being electrified all around you in these mountains. This is always followed by the world going silent around you, which seems like an echo chamber that concentrates odd sounds into your ears. From a young age, many of these spirits would follow me at night from house to house and would even stop at the border of my parents' property and wait to see if I'm coming back. It is also very true that we close our blinds at night and never ever open or look out of them unless it is after 3 a.m. It is common for people living back in the woods to say they see spirits watching them through their windows. Never shoot a gun after dark unless the devil take you in silence. I have heard that a lot, and I think it was a way to not attract attention to yourself, but if you have to defend yourself, then you just do what you need to do. I have always heard that a woman should never allow her feet to be swept or have someone sweep under her feet. This would cause her to never marry, as in the case of sweeping her feet, as well as would lose her baby if she is pregnant when her feet are swept under. Stay away from water at night, as there are beings that live in the waters around here that will drag you in. And God or gods help you if you play with a Ouija board around waters in this area. You are fucked, and you will be fucked until your untimely death, as some would say. Many would play the whisper game around here to call spirits or talk to them as well. This was done by cupping your hands near a water source and whispering a message into your hands, then reversing your hands to hear the spirits talk to you. Never yell as the sun goes down, as it is sure to attract spooks to your porch at night to feed upon your essence. Also, do not creak a broken board unless you attract bad energy into your home at night. It is very common to hear things around your house at night, which you always should assume is just an animal and leave it alone. I have heard scratching noises on our doors at night and whispers as if someone is waiting for you outside your door at night. In these cases, never open the door unless you are ready for a serious haunting. A lot of people also say that hearing footsteps behind you during any time of the day means the devil is after you for your bad deeds. Never jump a creek without checking both ways before doing so. Many say that this is daring death to come for you, as you are not respecting the flow of the water. I have been taught a great many things in my life, and one to live by is never cheat anyone in a deal, even without meaning to. This would mean you cheated the devil, and he will come for his due. Also, never spit into someone's home, as this is a disrespect to their ancestors, and the ancestors will fuck your shit up in no uncertain terms. These are all legends and wives' tales from our area that I hope you guys like, but I will also tell a couple stories from our area. I grew up around the old-timers in our area and love to hear their stories. I have been fascinated by many such stories from a young age and have always taken their lessons to heart. Many have told me stories that are too long to remember or have been forgotten after all this time. Though some did survive, and I will try to cover a few from this area as well as the area that my dad's family came from, which is Hot Springs, North Carolina. A more recent story from our area involves Lake James. This lake was a black town that sprung up back in the 1800s. These folks lived hardy lives and were rarely bothered by outsiders, as traveling the mountains was not so easy when there were no roads and people used walking paths to get around. This meant that in the late 1800s and early 1900s, trains would carry many where they needed to go. This little town had a train that would run through this area and take people up toward Sevierville and Asheville to work in mines in that area. Just like your telling of the Lake Lanier story, in 1916, these folks were told to leave their town, and they would be compensated, as North Carolina had decided to turn their area into Lake James State Park. Many were never paid by the state and just forced out of the area. No one would try to relocate the homes or graves for these people at all. The state government never really cared about black folk, as many from the New Bern, North Carolina area influenced politics with money. So they ran these black folks from their homes and forced them off their land. Then the state began construction of Lake James and its dam. They were even said to have left the dam train on the tracks and just diverted the railway to another area, then altered and ripped out the rails that led into the lake. They filled the area in and left many islands in the lake that used to be hills. You could never pay me to go into that water, ever. I have swam in that lake, but I have felt hands grabbing at my feet and even pulling me toward the bottom. I am a strong swimmer and a little chunky, so they never succeeded. LOL. I say all of that to say this. Back in the early 90s, glorious time to be alive, 2 divers were sent into Lake James to check the pumps near the dam on one side of the lake. One diver went into the pump house and started checking the pumps and their levers. He was only there for a short time until he could feel like something was beside him. He looked around and saw an eye that was as big as he was in the pump house. So he swam out immediately and to the surface. Needless to say, he told the foreman for Duke Energy to hire another fucking dive team because he was never going back in that water again. Many would say that Lake James is just a lake, but I never have liked that water. I have canoed all around that lake and even went to some of the islands there as well. I have heard from people in that area around Nebu, North Carolina, that there is a Confederate graveyard on one of the islands within that lake, but many told me to never go there. Those spirits are bitter by being forgotten and left there surrounded by a lake that was never supposed to be. Some say that you can see a mist around the graves that will try to push you into the lake and drown you. Of course, I plan on going there when I go canoeing again. Speaking on the Black Shulk, however, Vale Crucis was featured in your episode on hellhounds, I believe, and that is very near to where I live. The legend is true, and I have heard many tell me that a black dog will emerge from that graveyard and chase you for a mile or so and can even bite the back of your car if you aren't careful. Closer to my home is Linville Gorge and Linville Caverns. Many say that those caves in that gorge are haunted as hell. I know that some have showed me footage they took at the mouth of Linville Caverns that looked like men around a campfire, talking until it vanished. That shit scared the hell out of me because I have been in those caves on tours and have been to that very spot where that video was taken. I wish that I had it to send to you, but alas, I do not. As a PSA though, never go into Linville Gorge after dark, as you will die. Many don't realize that the whole area is mountain lion central and they will eat you. I have known of people being airlifted out of the gorge as the mountain lions will kill anyone that would come to save you on foot. So they lower someone on ropes down to you and pull you out. My brother-in-law has had to do this several times as an EMT rescue operator. He is also the one who told me about a ridge near Valdez, North Carolina, which is like 7 minutes away from my house. This is the same Valdez, North Carolina from your 2 Holiday Horror Stories episode. I don't know where that ridge is, but he said that EMTs in our area will be called to that area by an anonymous caller. There is nothing there, but he said that the road forks once you get to the top of that ridge. The call always comes from a place that is down the road to the right of the fork. Once an EMT drives the ambulance down a little ways, like a block or 2 in city terms, down that road, a tree will fall behind the ambulance and block them in. The first time that happened, I was told that the EMTs left the ambulance and began looking around only to hear footsteps and running toward the ambulance. It later became policy, when responding to a call in that area, to stay inside the ambulance and lock all the doors and then call for police assistance. Many police officers refuse to enter that area, but they will to save someone's life. He told me that there is a family of inbreds that live in that area and will try to attack the EMTs or kidnap them for money and other things. On this subject, in Boone, North Carolina, I have heard about a train that takes toys to the children in the mountains around Boone, North Carolina at Christmas time. But these children are the product of heavy inbreeding, and those who have worked that train have made it clear that some of these children are horribly deformed from all the incest in their family. Though they are still children and deserve toys and treats just like any other at Christmas, so it is a service that is really beneficial. It is uncommon, however, to find a lot of inbreeding in our area, though. Now, to the last of my stories that come from my dad when he lived in Hot Springs, North Carolina. That area of North Carolina is secluded and often far behind the times than the rest of the state. My dad would describe that in the 60s, many would not have shoes to wear and would get hand-me-downs for clothes. These are true mountain folk who don't take shit and never bother anyone. My father would talk about killing squirrels and rabbits to eat when they had no food. He really liked the squirrel brains a lot. Though this area is secluded, it is still an area that would see a lot of railways running through the area. One such railway went over a lake that in the 1930s saw a derailment that sent a passenger train splashing into the lake water and sinking to the bottom. Many have entered that lake to retrieve the train or any passengers only to find that there is no bottom to it. I don't think anyone has ever touched the bottom of that lake, and my dad has a theory that the whole area is a giant and ancient volcano. That would make sense as the area is filled with hot springs, hence the town name, and even as many rivers that run through the area as well. I have heard of people pulling catfish from the French Broad River that are longer than a truck bed, and sometimes a truck. Going along with that train tracks, though, my father and a lot of kids in the area would walk along the train tracks to go to school in the mornings and the evenings. Some kids that he knew well, who he knew were trustworthy, told him that one day they were walking along the tracks and they saw a man approaching them from the other side of the tracks. They noticed that he looked odd, but couldn't tell why until he got close enough to see well. In the dying light of the evening, they swore that this man was carrying his head and was dressed like a rail worker or miner. He said that they stopped walking and watched the man as he passed by them and waved with his head still clutched in his left hand. Obviously, they ran like hell afterward. My father would also tell me about times that he would hear footsteps in the woods as he would walk around the train tracks sometimes as well. He said that you could walk and hear a faint crunching of leaves behind you until you stopped and the footsteps would stop as well. He figured that it was a mountain lion, but it happened more often than a mountain lion would stalk a human being. As a side note to this, my father's mother also was a holinist, which would later become part of the Pentecostal church. They believed that witches and sorcerers haunted the woods and lands in the wilderness. They also believed that women should never cut their hair or wear pants unless the devil or a witch would haunt and sometimes rape them. I say this to say that my father and the other kids would often gather around a man's house in town who was said to be a wizard. My dad said that he would laugh and put a quarter in his hand and then whistle, only to have the quarter stand on its own and twirl in his palm. He would even put the quarter in the kids' hands and do the same thing. Many would fear him, save for the town's children, but he was said to control entities that could drive out demons and spooks from your home. I would love for you guys to visit my area and see the sights. As I have stated before, I am 15 or 20 minutes from Brown Mountain and have always known about a lot of crazy things that have gone on in the area. If you guys ever visit Morganton, Asheville, or Boone, then let me know and I can talk to you guys about some crazy shit. Just be careful when going on the Appalachian Highway or trails, though. Mountain lions and ticks suck in the summer. I hope I didn't give you guys too much information and that all this helps you to understand the area as well. In the future, you should check out the scary story of Frankie Silvers. She was very similar to Lizzie Borden and is an old legend from our area. Also, we used to have a witch that lived in town and would read from the Bible on Halloween every year to stick it in the craw of the church folk. Thanks for checking out my email and have a great day. Wow.
I mean, talk about thorough, talk about storytelling. I mean, amazing stuff.
Nick Barker, let me tell you something, Nicholas. I'm going to reach out with an email because you and I kind of had very similar upbringings, at least.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't, Appalachia, but I know what you mean.
Right.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Michigan, which is not Appalachia, but there's certain things you're talking about. I'll send you an email because I think you and I kind of grew up around similar folk.
Yes. And isn't it interesting with these, like he said, sometimes like the elderly folk or something, that they will just have these damn stories. I mean, it's amazing. And like, I'm so glad that we are able to hear all of these stories from someone that it has such a close connection with Appalachia, because, you know, we love Appalachia and we did our Appalachia episode, but it's nice to hear the true stories, like the stories that you know, these stories you really hear from someone, like firsthand, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just like, it makes it more exciting. It's cool.
And it wasn't just stories, it was like, you got it. He gave you context
Yeah.
to back it up with. Wonderful. And Nicholas is actually, he's got a lot of projects of his own he's
Yes.
working on.
Check him out.
Between this episode and the next episode, I'll get info from him. That way, at the top of the next episode, Nicholas, we can give your stuff a shout out so people can go find it. Because our
Gorgeous.
Maureen did the research for our Appalachian episode.
I sure did.
And it's become one of our biggest. I mean,
I'm
people
glad people like it. I like it too. It was a really fun episode to put together, and I think it's just something that a lot of people are interested in, and I get it.
I think there's potential. Maybe in the future, Nicholas, the three of us can collaborate on something.
Come on.
Wow.
Those were a bunch of great listener stories. I mean, our listeners have been through it.
Yes, absolutely. And gosh, can you believe we've now done 6 volumes of listener stories. And
I mean, amazing.
not only is it one of our favorite episodes to do, but folks, the fact that we have fresh stories every time
We
is
always
so
do.
wonderful.
It's so cool.
So wonderful. And listen, like we said, if we missed one that was in there, it was not because we didn't like it, it's because it was a mistake.
Yes.
We either missed it or forgot or something. We tried to be pretty thorough. I think we got them all.
And on that same note, if you have a story, an experience, a connection with true crime, an urban legend from your hometown, anything like this, we want to hear about it. And you can email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com, or you can let us know on any of our social media accounts. You can slide into our DMs, as it were. And, you know, right now we plan on, or we have been, you know, doing listener stories twice a year around, you know, the summertime and then around, you know, kind of Christmas time. But it's never the wrong time to get it in, because we'll either just have it ready for the next time we do this over the holidays, or if we get a ton, maybe we'll just throw in an extra one somewhere. You never know.
Absolutely. And also, you can also, if you want, be anonymous. If you have a story you want to share, but you know, maybe you just don't want your name for who knows why. Maybe you just don't want your name. That's fine too. Just say it in the email, and we will, of course, honor that. So.
Oh my gosh. So thank you all so much. What an amazing community we have here. I mean, we're lucky as heck.
Truly. Well, Maureen, I got a list of names I wouldn't mind following me into the Appalachian woods.
Prove it.
Folks, give it on up. For our top-tier Patreon subscribers, of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish Face Via Lungfist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the oh-so-suave Sean Richardson, the British Bonebreaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool, Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude, Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand, Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Sir of Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire, Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Buren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, the Sadistic Sergio Castillo, the Rapscallion Ryan Crum, the Beast Benjamin Huang, the Devilish Chris Doucette, the Psycho Sam, the Electric Emily Zhang, the Renegade Corey Ramos, the Crazed Carlos, the Antagonist Andrew Park, the Monstrous Michaela Schur, the Witchy Wonder J.P. Weimer, the Freaky Ben Forsyth, and the Barbaric Andrew Barry.
Whoa, that was righteous and great. Wow, Dylan, thank you so much for reading off those glorious, glorious names, our top-tier Patreon subscribers. Wow, thank you so much to our top-tier Patreon subscribers. We love you so much, and thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers, and thank you for listening here today, no matter what. If you have a second, it would just be amazing if you could open on up that app, whatever app you're listening to us on now, whether that be an Apple Podcasts, a Spotify, or what have you, and hit us with that 5 stars and maybe just a quick review. It means so much to the podcast. It really, really helps us out. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a quick second to do that, and, once again, give us those 5 stars. We would so appreciate it. And for those of you who already have, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Goodbye.